And a new warning out of Ukraine as people continue to flee the country, how our state is showing support to refugees. And Governor Polis is leading the charge to set the tone for helping Ukrainians. He'll be at an Aurora coffee shop today. Good morning to you. I'm Brian Sanders.
And I'm Nicole Brady. It's going to be a little warmer today, but we have more snow on the way. Meteorologist Lisa Hidalgo is tracking that for us.
It's so pretty right now. We've got blue skies statewide, just a few clouds rolling in this morning from Longs Peak. There at Rocky Mountain National Park, we're looking at a nice start. Your dog walking forecast this morning, teens and low 20s right now. We're going to be right around 40 degrees between 4 and 5. It's likely going to be one of the warmest afternoon walks that you're going to see here in about 4 to 5 days until we get into the weekend. Right now, Denver 22, Littleton 18, Broomfield and Boulder now in the upper 20s. Still some single digits up and through the foothills. Conifer 9, Bailey right now 0. We'll hit highs close to freezing up and through the mountains and foothills, some 20s farther west, and then in town right around 40 this afternoon. Then here comes the snow, and by tomorrow late day, it's going to start to pick up. So we're going to see most of our accumulation from Wednesday into early Thursday. I'll show you how much we're expecting coming up.
And that means sloppy driving conditions for us Thursday morning. Right now, basically dry roads, but we have a big problem up to the north, right at Berthoud. Take a look from the camera up there, and we have a crash that's blocking up the left lane. It's back in here. You can see the traffic is stacked up through the construction zone. Even the northbound side is slow because they're looking at the crash on the other side of the highway. That looky-look traffic is just ridiculous. You can see the drive time right now at an hour. It's coming down from Highway 34. So some of the county roads or even 287 can get you around a little bit faster. We also have a problem downtown Denver. Take a look from that camera where we have the semi that's broken down across the center part of southbound right after I-70 at 38th Avenue, and that's why the drive time right now across downtown is pretty lengthy there, about a half an hour. So you just saw 225, or rather 270 is about 15 minutes. Really heavy traffic because of a crash right by Colorado Boulevard and westbound I-70, and still looking at some slow traffic on 225 across Aurora and down through the Denver Tech Center as well as C-470.
Our breaking news this morning is that President Biden will announce a plan to ban Russian oil imports about 45 minutes from now. We'll be sure to bring you his comments live. Meanwhile, national gas prices hit a record last night, and in Colorado, they jumped 40 to 65 cents per gallon in just the last week.
So this morning, we're going 360 in depth. So we're breaking down the prices today, also what's causing the increase, some potential solutions from the Biden administration, and how prices are already impacting our driving habits.
So here's AAA's map for our state showing the gas prices, and you can see the red areas. That's where people are paying a little bit more, over $4 per gallon. That's mostly in the mountain communities. The blue areas like Adams and Weld counties have lower gas prices.
The average price for regular gas in Colorado today is $3.84 a gallon. That's up 45 cents from last week. For context, though, it's still below our record high set back in July of 2008. The average price then was $4.09 a gallon. And we wanted to know if Colorado drivers are ready to really make some big changes in their habits to save money.
Denver 7's Christian Lopez joins us live with how the increase could lead to some tough choices here.
Yeah, we may be at that point right now for many people. A recent survey showed that people in Colorado said they would change their driving habits if gas reached $3.75. We were at that price yesterday, and in just one day, it went up 9 cents. And in that same survey that was done by AAA, it also showed drivers said that they would drive less, they would carpool, and they would sign up for fuel rewards programs. Now, in this case, your first thought when prices jump like this may be to just drive less, but that's often not an option for people who have to drive for a living. And records from the federal government showed that to be the case when the records were set back in 2008. Consumption still stayed constant. So what does get cut? Well, an article from the New York Times profiled people who were trimming their budgets to make more room for spending on gas. And dining out, shopping, and leisure travel were among the first things to go. And we heard some of that from some people here.
As a retiree, I travel around town, but that's about it. It's not a problem for me right now. If it gets much higher, yeah, we probably won't travel much.
And some estimates show that Americans could spend around $2,000 each by the end of this year if these prices don't ease up. Reporting live in Denver this morning, I'm Christian Lopez, Denver 7.
All right, thanks, Christian. So what all is leading or causing the rise in gas prices? It's not just the war in Ukraine. AAA says we already had a supply and demand problem. On the supply side, OPEC is promising only modest production increases. Meanwhile, more people are driving to work and traveling since the pandemic has waned, causing an increase in demand. And then now you add in a global crisis caused by Russia.
We only get historically about 4% of our oil from Russia, but 10% of the world's oil is from Russia. And remember, we're competing against every other country and every other oil user out there for oil to make gasoline. It is something we're going to feel every time we fill up. It's also going to continue to drive inflation on all our other goods and services that rely on gasoline and crude oil to be shipped around.
Now, Russia is having an impact, but the United States is the world's largest producer of oil, and AAA says part of the problem is U.S. oil companies.
And while there is some increased production, many of the major oil development corporations and companies in the United States are opting not to produce more oil right now because they benefit from selling it at this very high price. Crude is trading at $120 right now. So if you're getting mad at anybody, I would say get mad at folks who are trying to make a dime for their shareholders at the expense of your wallet.
And one more concern, Russia also sells natural gas. Last week, that hit a record price in Europe. It was 10 times the price Europe was paying about a year ago.
Now to the big headlines coming out of Ukraine. At least 2 million people have had to flee the country so far. The people who are left behind in the capital of Kyiv face bleak conditions too. 100,000 people are trapped without access to water or electricity right now. Russia, meanwhile, has declared a temporary ceasefire, allowing civilians in Ukraine's 5 worst hit cities to leave. But new this hour, we've learned a convoy to help rescue people has been attacked on the way to Mariupol on the southern coast. Governor Polis, meanwhile, here has said Colorado would welcome refugees from Ukraine. He'll visit Wake and Take Coffee, a Ukrainian-owned business in Aurora, today to discuss the ways the state and Coloradans can support Ukrainians. Coming up in our next half hour, we're also diving into what your alternative transportation methods are with the gas prices rising. You can see our full 360 in-depth coverage on the rising cost of gas right now on thedenverchannel.com.
Well, a gruesome story out of Denver is making headlines around the country. Police are looking for a box of human heads stolen out of a truck.
Denver 7's Colette Bordelon is digging for answers about where these heads came from and where they're going.
Near East 23rd Avenue, disturbing news is making its way around the neighborhood.
You mean to tell me a block away from my house?
Pila Ross, who didn't want to be on camera, can't believe a box of human heads meant for medical research were stolen out of a company's truck not far from where she lives.
You never know what those heads were going to be used for one. And for two, what are you going to do with them now that you found them?
The ripple effect of the donations taken goes beyond the initial shock.
I don't think people understand the negative impact that an event like this can have on our industry.
At TomorrowLink, a whole body donation program,
this is where all of the education happens.
Yep, so this is our lab.
Those who have passed on are helping those still here, something close to the nonprofit's heart.
I love what I do. I lost my dad years ago.
Understanding the gravity behind the donations, used for future first responders or medical professionals, getting them ready to piece together any healthcare puzzles.
I know what you're talking about, where the pain's coming from, why it's happening this way. So it really just puts it more in a visual perspective than just blurbing out words.
And while it wasn't their company that was stolen from, they know what that box contained.
It holds the opportunity to save a life.
The theft has the local industry thinking hard about security.
Make sure that we're doing everything we can at all times to make sure those gifts are safe.
Because from the donor to the future of medicine.
Not only for enhancing medical training, but allows that individual's legacy to live on.
What was stolen from that truck in Denver may have held answers we all could use.
Science Care could not do an interview with us, but they say they want to find the white cardboard box, which has a blue Science Care logo on it. If you have any information, call Denver Police at the number on your screen, 720-913-2000.
There are currently hundreds of missing people in Colorado, and for those who identify as indigenous, cases often go unsolved.
A new bill set to be introduced in the legislature this week would create an Office of Missing and Murdered Indigenous Relatives.
The office would be tasked with creating an alert system for missing and murdered indigenous people. It would train first responders on how to handle these cases, working on improving data tracking and reviewing cold cases. Also, it would take a closer look at deaths that were ruled to be suicide or overdose under suspicious circumstances. Now, one of the biggest hurdles these cases face is jurisdictional complications, where there is not a clear understanding of the protocols for interagency cooperation, since tribal nations are involved. We spoke with the bill's prime sponsor, Colorado State Senator Jessie Danielson, about why she's bringing this bill forward.
Indigenous people in Colorado, in particular Indigenous women and children, are victims of violent crime at an extraordinarily higher rate than any other group of people in the state and across the country. So I felt it was my obligation to do what's right.
As of December, the Colorado Bureau of Investigation shows 14 missing indigenous people in Colorado. 15 other states have already taken steps to address MMIR cases. Amazon is helping more people earn their college degree. Details on the new program CSU is joining in on.
And a Colorado teen with a unique talent, how a high school student is making an international name for himself.